Continuing from the previous video, so receptors and effectors, okay, they work together to bring suitable changes, okay, depending on the stimulus that are detected. Jadi bagaimana ini berlaku, kita lihat sekali lagi apakah maksud coordination. So coordination is a process, is a stimuli detection process. Jadi ini dilakukan oleh receptor. And then after being detected, those nerve impulse will be sent to the integration center, and that is the brain, and it will end by generating nerve impulse to be sent to effectors yang akan menghasilkan gerak balas yang bersesuaian, iaitu appropriate responses. Okay, so inilah maksud dia bagaimana receptor dan effector ini work together. Okay, so coordination ensures that overall activities system dalam organisma itu dapat berfungsi, that they are synchronized perfectly as a complete unit. Jadi the role of coordination and response is conducted by two separate systems. Okay, apakah dua sistem tersebut? That's the nervous systems and the endocrine system. Both of these is going to work together to coordinate and control responses. Okay, kita lihat kepada figure 12.1 at the main components as well as the pathways that are involved in detecting and responding to changes ataupun stimulus yang berada pada persekitaran luaran, external environment. Later on, we will be looking at another one, which is to changes in internal environment. Okay, kita lihat dulu yang ini, di mana dia punya stimulus. Okay, this lady is receiving phone calls, is talking on the phone. So first, dia mesti ada stimulus, rangsangan daripada external environment, and that is when her phone starts ringing. So itu adalah bunyi, sound. So sound sebagai stimulus daripada external environment, which will be detected, akan dikesan oleh sensory receptors. Okay, please take note of the main components. Dan where can you find these sensory receptors? They are in the sensory organs yang berada di telinga. Okay, ada receptor, sensory receptors. And this is going to transform the sound of the phone ring to nerve impulses dalam bentuk impuls saraf ataupun signal elektrik that is able to be sent to the integration center. Okay, integration center. So nerve impulses are sent through melalui, ingat nama neuron, that's the sensory neuron. Okay, saraf yang bertanggungjawab untuk menghantar impuls saraf daripada sensory receptors to the integration center. So what will happen in the integration center, iaitu otak? Okay, it will be, these nerve impulses will be interpreted, akan diinterpretasi dan kemudian akan mencetuskan respons. So take note of these two keywords. Satu dia interpret, and then it's going to trigger the appropriate response. And then akan mencetuskan lagi impuls saraf yang lain, yang baru yang akan dihantar, which will be sent through the motor neuron. Jadi ingat nama sel saraf ini sekarang bernama motor neuron. So it's going to be sent to the effector. Okay, effector ini maybe the glands or the muscles. So in this case, merujuk kepada hand muscles, which will produce response by answering the phone upon hearing the sound of the phone ringing initially. Okay, and this one is also the same actually in terms of the components involved. Cuma dia punya stimulus itu datang daripada internal environment. Okay, persekitaran dalam tubuh lah. So in this case, is this man, he is doing vigorous activity. So after the activity, what happened is that his blood pressure increases during the activity, during the running vigorous activity. So this increase in the blood pressure ini telah bertindak menjadi satu rangsangan sebab ada perubahan dari segi tekanan darah. Dia akan dikesan oleh receptors. Okay, sensory receptors dekat sini yang bertanggungjawab untuk mengesan perubahan pada tekanan darah is called the baroreceptor. Di mana tempatnya dia berada di aortic arch dan juga carotid artery. Okay, dalam bab 13 nanti kita akan lihat sekali lagi kedudukan dua baroreceptor ini. Okay, so upon being detected, nerve impulse will be triggered and akan dicetuskan dan akan dihantar melalui here we have also the sensory neuron yang bertanggungjawab menghantar nerve impulse ini to the integration center which is the brain. So here dia ada specific sebab receptor yang terlibat adalah baroreceptor. So the cardiovascular control center ini adalah tempat tersebut spesifik itu yang mengawal atur tekanan darah dalam badan kita. So this cardiovascular control center is located at the medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata dekat bahagian brain stem itu. So this cardiovascular control center is going to generate nerve impulse to be sent through the motor neuron pergi ke mana? Kepada effector. Jadi effector is going to result in response atau gerak balas di mana dia akan bertindak untuk mengurangkan tekanan darah. Sebab tadi tinggi kan, so it works to homeostasis takes place in which it will reduce the blood pressure to normal range. Supaya masih lagi terkawal, dia balik kepada keadaan normal ataupun keadaan asal. So bagaimana effector ini bertindak balas? It is going to weaken the contraction of the cardiac muscles. Okay, supaya dia tidak terlampau contract sehingga mencetuskan tekanan yang tinggi. Sekarang ni dia punya aim is to reduce the BP. Okay, so this is one. Number two is that the blood vessels punya diameter akan dilate expansion. Okay, jadi bila diameter itu meningkat, jadi dia akan bertindak untuk mengurangkan tekanan darah. Okay. Now let's look at the types of receptors. We say sensory receptors, where can they be found? They are found at the end of the nerve fibers, detect information in the internal and also external environment. Found at the end of the nerve fibers. Jadi mereka ada pada saraf-saraf. So location of the receptors depends on the types of stimulus. So each type adalah kita panggil dia adalah specific, sensitive towards specific stimulus. Okay, contohnya kalau sensory receptors that are detecting external stimuli, they are found in sensory organs yang kita sudah biasa, iaitu the eyes, the nose, tongue, and the skin. Okay, yang ini yang kita sudah biasa. Okay, even there's another one which is the ear. Ini adalah 5 sensory organ tersebut. The one that is responsible to detect external stimuli. Okay, the sensory receptors that detect internal stimuli pula, they are present in specific internal organs, okay, such as the pancreatic cells, which detect the change in the blood sugar level. Okay, kita lihat okay, jadual ini, sensory receptor. Daripada nama itu kita boleh tahu. For example, photo referring to light. So photoreceptors, the stimulus is light. Okay, thermo referring to thermal, that means heat, and the stimulus is change in temperature. Okay, for chemoreceptor, changes chemo referring to chemical, so changes in terms of the presence of certain chemical substances. Okay, baroreceptor yang kita lihat tadi, okay, iaitu change in pressure. Ada satu lagi mechanoreceptor, which the stimulus involved are touched and pressure. Ada satu lagi nociceptor, nociceptor on the pain stimulus. Okay. Detection of external stimulus by photoreceptor ini yang biasa apabila kita melihat sesuatu objek menggunakan sensory organ mata. So what's the stimulus? That's the light. So this photoreceptor, okay, which is the sensory cells that is present in the sensory organ, the eye, is going to detect the stimulus, which is light, the presence of light. Keadaan terang kita boleh nampak objek-objek ini. So this will then trigger nerve impulse to be sent to the integration center, which is the brain, and the nerve impulse is being carried through sensory neuron. Melalui, kita panggil ini sebagai sensory neuron. Okay, iaitu optic nerve. Ada dalam optic nerve. Okay, kemudian apa yang berlaku adalah this integration center, which is the brain, is going to interpret and is going to trigger another nerve impulse to the effector. Okay, maybe the eyes, the muscles of the eyes, and then to tell us what is the image that we can see. Okay, whether we should continue looking at the image or should retract from the image. Okay, this photograph shows the animals, a group of birds migrating when they sense changes in the climate. Okay, so necessity of response, let's recap. In the previous video, I've covered on the necessity of responses. Why do organisms have to respond to stimuli, internal stimuli? Okay, the ability of the organisms to detect changes in the external environment and its response to the stimuli is very important. First and foremost for the survival, iaitu kelangsungan hidup organisma tersebut. So for some animals, a sudden change in the climate conditions will motivate the animals to look for new shelters. Okay, jadi benda ini sebenarnya adalah signifikan kepada kumpulan haiwan tersebut. And the abilities of organisms to detect changes in the internal environment, okay, internal environment is also crucial atau important so that the information can be transmitted to the integration center untuk membolehkan appropriate response to take place. So integration center transmit information to the effector. This is what I mean just now, to respond appropriately towards the changes. For example, if the body temperature increases, okay, maksudnya macam seolah-olah keadaan sangat panas. Okay, body temperature increases above the normal range. So this information is going to be transmitted to the integration center by a receptor. Okay, by a receptor, and the integration center will send nerve impulses to the effectors so that it will work to decrease the temperature back to the normal range. Jadi kita sebut proses homeostasis telah berlaku di sini untuk memastikan persekitaran dalaman ataupun the internal environment is optimum. So in conclusion, what's the conclusion? Is that humans and animals, they need to respond in order to adapt to the changes, okay, for the sake of survival.